Good evening, YouTube. This is officially day 2 of the automatic to manual transmission swap. The manual transmission is in, and now I need to trim around the shifter so that I can be able to install it and be able to service it whenever I need to change the transmission fluid. So a couple things you need to be aware of is you are going to need either a Sawzall or a hacksaw for this. I have a Sawzall, so it'll make this go a little quicker. Just take your time with it. Make sure you mark out exactly where you need it. Don't go too far. Don't go too short, or you're gonna have to trim it again. As you can see, I've got this in here. Before you start trimming it though, make sure you drop the transmission back down. Just have a jack underneath the bottom of the transmission. Remove your 4 transmission bolts and let it hang. Let the jack all the way down so that it's hanging on just the engine mounts. It'll give you more than enough room, and then if it's still open like this, make sure you throw a rag or a towel over it just to keep any metal shavings and garbage from falling down inside of it. Crawl back underneath this Mustang. Give me just a second here. We are still working on the floor. It has been going pretty well. A couple of issues I ran into, one of which was one of my electrical connectors was pulled out. It looked just like this, and I had to disconnect and rewire the electrical connector. Wherever that ended up, basically one of these bad boys. These come apart pretty simple, and I'll post a video on how to do that a little bit later. They really are pretty simple. You just got to make sure you get the right pins in the right holes on the connector, and that'll work every time. Just in case you ever break them or pull them out like mine was. So here's the beauty. Manual transmission installed. No driveline yet. You don't want to hook up the driveline or the exhaust yet. You want to have it trimmed and ready to go before you even start to hook the exhaust back up. Here's that transmission mount. Again, make sure that you get a manual transmission mount. The automatic will not fit. You can source them from your local parts store, or Rock Auto carries them for a little bit cheaper. This transmission is considerably lighter. You do not need the jack to put it in here. I was able to pull it up on top of my chest and bench press it into place. Went right in real nice and easy. The best part about this tree mech is that it is a 2-piece, meaning the bell housing is its own unit, and the gearbox itself is an entirely separate unit. So what you want to do is hook up your flywheel, your clutch, your pressure plate, and your clutch fork with the throw-out bearing already on it into place. And then you just need to pick the transmission up, slide it through the clutch fork and into the clutch and all the way into the pilot bearing. It was actually really easy to do. It took me all of about 60 seconds to slide it into place. The only issue that I had with it is that I had the bolts sitting all the way over there, so I couldn't reach them, so I had a transmission held up in the air with one hand while I was reaching for the bolts. So make sure you have all your bolts ready to go when you're lifting heavy stuff into place. But other than that, it went right into place real nice and easy, slid into place. The clutch cable is kind of a trick to route it. I had the fortune of removing it from the donor car, so it was fairly simple to do. Well, simple to route it because I knew where it needed to go. But for those of you that don't know where it goes, so you see there is your steering column, and there's a little bracket around it, metal bracket that prevents anything from rubbing up against it or getting caught in it. That clutch cable runs on the other side of that, in between the oil pan, and then hooks up and around it. then hooks back up and around and comes up through the firewall, and I'll show you guys that in a minute here. But yeah, overall this build has actually been pretty smooth, other than that electrical issue that I had where one of the connectors was pulled out. When you grab that manual transmission harness, the beautiful thing about it is you don't have to cut or splice any wires. It plugs right in to the pre-existing wires from the automatic transmission. So you just disconnect the automatic transmission wiring harness and then plug in the manual transmission wiring harness. Real quick, easy, simple to do. And when the bell housing, you want to do that before you install the actual transmission. You want the bell housing in first, and then leave the top 2 bolts out on the bell housing, then put the electrical connector up into place, bolt it into place, and then hook up your electrical connectors. I tried to do it the other way and it didn't quite work. But yeah, basically this is where we are at. Still got to hook the exhaust back up, still got to get the drive line back in it, but right now it's pretty much wrap it up and test it out.